Hello, my name is Gilbert Clark. I'm the Executive Chairman of Meridian Mining. We have a belt-scale VMS copper gold project in Mato Grosso, Brazil. Today with me is Dr. Adrian McArthur, the CEO of Meridian Mining. He's actually on site in San Jose, Catamarcos.
Gilbert, Adrian, nice to have you both. Good to see you, Adrian.
Thanks everybody. I'm Adrian McArthur. I'm the CEO of Meridian Mining. I've worked with this company now for 6 years. We've been working on Cabacal for over a year now. It's been a very transformational project for us, busily drilling with 3 rigs in operation. I'm here in the company office in San Jose de Catamarcos, about half an hour away from the project area, and look forward to presenting to you the project today.
Great. Well, good. Let's get straight into it. I see you've just put out 64 meters at 1.9 copper equivalent. That was earlier this week. Was that on Monday or was that Friday of last week?
Monday. Monday we put that out.
That's a good result. And you got 20 meters at 5% to the bottom of the hole, or at the bottom of the intersection, which is pretty nice. Can you just tell me where that is? So when I look through your presentation and all of your marketing material, you know, it looks great and really exciting. But what I'd like to do in the course of this conversation is, for me, clarify kind of what you're working on at the moment, what's going to go into which bit of the study, and just kind of understand where the parts relate to each other. So perhaps just that first drill hole, where did that fit into the picture?
Yeah, that was a very significant hole for us. It was a hole that was drilled in the central copper zone over the historic Cabaçal gold mine. Cabaçal operated as a very selective room and pillar style underground mine at a 3 gram per tonne gold only cut-off grade. Less than 1 million tonnes was extracted from the project area. This hole formed part of our metallurgical program. We've drilled a number of holes now into the 3 principal copper zones in the mine environment, along with the northwest extension, a significant high-grade extension building out from the mine area, extending over 800, 900 metres to the northwest. There was a hole that we drilled, I guess, between the workings. There's a number of levels where the gold was previously extracted, but being small scale, this hole was drilled to drill a continuous column of HQ-sized large diameter core, and it intersected a very significant wide continuous copper zone. The lower part of the package, the MS package here, tends to be higher in copper, gold and silver. We had a particularly high-grade basal zone, which we weren't particularly anticipating. We knew we'd hit reasonable mineralisation, but getting such high grades was somewhat of a pleasant surprise. We've been seeing more and more actually coarse gold intersected in this project, and that reflects, I think, in the era there were limited platforms for underground grade control, so not all the development was systematically drilled off at the tight spacing, and the opportunity that leaves for us is that there's quite significant high-grade mineralisation left, in addition to the very extensive copper mineralisation, which of course wasn't the focus of the past operations.
Okay, I realise now I've actually got to step back a bit and to kind of get my head around there's a historic resource of 22 million tonnes at a relatively low grade, 0.6% copper and 0.6 grams gold. And is that in and around the old mine, and is it separate from the 800 metre kind of extension you've got to the northwest?
Yeah, so it's largely in and around the old mine, and there was some limited shoots that were modelled off to the northwest, but we've found much wider and more significant packages of mineralisation in this northwest extension. So a feature of the historical drilling was drilled on very wide spacings, 100 metre spacings to the northwest with vertical holes. One very important point, we're lucky to have a board of advisors, which includes a number of the geologists that worked on the project historically, Rocky Osborne, just some exterior people that were chief mine geologists, senior mine geologists of the project, Alfonso, the exploration manager. One thing they alerted us to was the fact that there were encountered within the mine environment, both very shallow dipping lodes mineralisation, the original VMS package, but these late stage cross-cutting subvertical structures. So with our drilling to the northwest, we've drilled very purposefully angled holes, and we found in fact the package of mineralisation that we intersect is much wider. In many areas we get much higher grades as a result of picking up both the flat-lying package and these steeper cross-cutting structures. So if you like, there's a core of dense information around the mine environment itself. The mine workings extend over about 500, 550 metres in extent. A minimal part of the resource extended past that, but we've been successful in both building that the mineralised envelope in both directions beyond its limited extent previously.
And does the is the VMS geology intact? I mean, have you got the kind of the classic the upwelling and the kind of the umbers and the feeder zone and the kind of the bottom of the ocean floor, that kind of spreading? Have you got that kind of mushroom style geology with the kind of stockwork underneath and the stringers? And is that in place? Has it been rotated? Has it been broken up? I mean,
yeah, in a fashion it is, but it's quite a high strain belt. It's then the rocks now are metamorphic rocks, so they're structurally deformed. They're schistose, got a very strong foliation. In fact, the package is inverted. So once was flat lying and pointing upwards, it's now been tilted and overturned. So we drill first through lower grade copper dominant mineralisation, stringer packages where the mineralisation's been somewhat dispersed and disseminated through the host rock. As we go downwards, we progressively go into more gold-rich environments. And there's in the original mine development, they found parts of the massive sulphide exhalative pile, but the lower contact of the package is actually a shear zone. So part of that original mound stratigraphy has been it's now a structural contact, and that's an interesting question for us. The question was raised in a contemporaneous study back in the 90s. Was there part of the massive sulphide mound that's been dislocated from the deposit, and that's still part of the ongoing exploration question for us. So you do see elements of that VMS stratigraphy, and certainly the alteration, the characteristic alteration style, albeit with the metamorphic overprint. And look, the structure could be interesting. The structure has had a significant effect in coarsening up the copper sulphide mineralisation, in coarsening up the gold, in redistributing the gold. And we think that's important in terms of the metallurgical signature of the deposit. Historically, it's had excellent recoveries, and we think a lot of that's to do with this structural overprint.
Well, and just one thing I'll add on that, it's actually really quite important to bring into the narrative, is a lot of that conventional, what you talk about, the conventional model of VMS, where you've got the VMS pile and the feeder system coming up to it. A lot of the mines that you'll see, even today, that are out there sort of drilling or being operated, that root system is just essentially, it's far too non-economical at these, 600, 700, 800 metre vertical depths. And that bulk mineralisation can't be exploited or commercialised. Now with Cabaçal, that root system has been literally put on its side and brought to the surface, and that gives this incredibly large mass of 1% copper equivalent, 1.1% copper equivalent material at surface. And then it's the tonnage that we're envisaging will make it quite an interesting resource statement.
Thank you, Gilbert. That helps. So you've got this kind of inversion of the system. So you've got the kind of the lower grade at the surface. What I'm struggling with is to understand kind of how you establish your vectors, your exploration toolbox. What are you working on to pick out your trends? Are you going on structure? Are you going on a kind of a metamorphic foliation? Do you use geophysics? I haven't got my head into your head yet.
Well, just on that, there's one thing you've got to put into this again, into the dialogue, is the actual limitations of the Cabaçal deposit were predefined. So what we're doing now is infilling. We actually knew that it was a large, flat-lying, northwest trending mineralized envelope. What we've benefited from, Adrian will go into detail, is that overlying this, sometimes up to 100 meters thick, gently dipping at surface copper gold mineralization, we have an incredibly high-grade overprint of subvertical gold, structurally controlled, which actually augments the grade quite significantly.
And that's late stage, and that's brittle fracture, and that's kind of post-dates the mineralization. Does it is it related? I mean, is it remobilizing gold, or is it kind of a reactivation of a deeper heat source? Or
Yeah, some very good questions there. I think. I guess stepping through a few of the questions there in terms of the data that we're leveraging off, we've been fortunate to be able to access all the archival records of RTZ. So there's thousands upon thousands of pages of scanned data there, historical geophysical information there, all the geochemical information, the drill assays. So some of the success that we've had with the drilling in the Northwest Extension and some of the interesting prospects that are evolving in the regional exploration, we're building off a very good base of work done by initially BP Minerals, who originally found this greenstone belt, and then RTZ, who acquired the project. So in terms of the vectors that we've got to work with, we've got an extremely sound, systematic, well-constructed database. One of our geologists actually, one of our senior geologists, worked on the original project back in the 1980s. We were lucky to have his knowledge, and he's been extremely excited by the results we've been getting. To supplement that, we've bought state-of-the-art geophysical equipment. So we've got our own in-house geophysical crew. We've got downhole electromagnetic probe, surface electromagnetic tools, which look for, I guess, the more copper-rich end member of the VMS family. We've got our own IP equipment, which I guess lets you vector for, in addition to massive sulphides, a disseminated sulphide halo. We've got our own gravity equipment, which we recently purchased, which will let us assess the deeper seated structural architecture. So we work on a range of levels geophysically, and we'll be gradually building up the database over the broader project. In terms of, I guess, vectors, there's a database of over 600 holes that have been drilled in the Cabaçal sphere itself, other holes drilled in the belt. Of course, that provides an enormous amount of information, and you go from a very data-rich environment with close space drilling within the mine to this broader space drilling. So, so that's given us some clues of where to go. It's been, I suppose, a matter of following, in some respects, it's 101 geology. We've got geochemical anomalies which remain untested. We've got structural trends we can predict out from the mine. And it's been just really doing systematic follow-up work that's led to some of that success in the Northwest Extension. And we're building on from that. I guess we're getting, day by day, we're continuing to drill and develop our ideas and following the trends as we map them out with denser data. So, it's one of the things that sold the project for us, just the fact that it had so much information that we've been able to leverage off, both in Cabaçal but also in the regional targets, which we're still in the early stages of developing and evaluating.
Adrian, thank you. That's a really full answer. I'm impressed that you've got good in-house geophysics, and you're doing the systematic work and geology and geochemistry. VMSs have historically responded well to, or kind of they've shown up well on some versions of geophysics, whether it's gravity in the Iberian Pyrite Belt or elsewhere, and EM in other places. So and indeed IP. The VMS I was working on I'm working on in Ecuador was picked up by IP. And lots of famous cases of gravity being a successful tool for VMSs. But can I just jump back to a kind of a comment, Gilbert, you made? You said that that it was the mineralization, or the ore body was kind of known. You had 600 or 700 meters of this known ore body. Does that mean that the envelope of mineralization within that 22 million tons is unlikely to change very much
No,
for the
no.
work that you've done.
No,
And
no.
really what you're just working on is the grade change with the kind of the inclusion of the high grade, the vertical structures. Or could you expand on that, please?
What we've done is we've been able to, by a multiple, increase that envelope. So the envelope, that density of drilling was kind of like the resource drilling. And then they did to the northwest and to some extent to the southeast, they did like 100-meter step outs of drilling, and now drilling vertically, and they hit this 0.6, 0.7, the full range of VMS copper equivalent going north. They did not hit any gold. And in the context of this program where we're using this information, what were they targeting when they defined that envelope? They were defining a zone of mineralization that was plus 3 gram gold. That was the criteria for delineation drilling. So what we did, we're looking at the VMS, the commercial attributes. And so we were able to, in conjunction with the known drilling and chatting to the geologists at the time, effectively all Adrian and the team have done, used that information and then drilled angled holes back to the northeast in orientation and just progressed that up to the northwest. And we've now can see that high-grade gold overprint that's been effectively missed by because it's subvertical, it was effectively missed by the subvertical or the vertical drilling. So we've actually just said, okay, the VMS continues and the high-grade gold overprint continues. And the high-grade gold overprint, that was identified in 88, and the drilling program was finished in 86. They never revisited the drilling program. That was at the right orientation for a flat-lying copper-gold VMS system, but absolutely useless to also target the high-grade subvertical gold overprint. And this is actually quite substantial numbers.
Can you refer to a map just so I can understand? Kind of,
sure. Look, on our presentation, if people were to look at the current presentation and get from the website on page 8, there's
do you want to pull it up now?
Yeah, I can share it. That's not a problem at all.
Yeah. Well, why don't you pull it up now, and then we can, if you just kind of point with your mouse on it.
See, what we can see here is this was the concentration of the drilling in the center. These grey dots. You can see it's like a mass now. Like that's how much drilling it had. And what they did is they then progressed to the northwest because there was a gold anomaly to the northwest, these grey dots. So what we did is we knew there was one high-grade gold hit, JSB, was it 326?
216.
216. It had a very high, 3 meters at 300 grams gold, and effectively they drilled down one of the veins. So we actually, all we've done is follow that structure of that one. There's multiple structures. We've followed one structure to the northwest, and then we've drilled angled holes back to the northeast. And we've just hit continually high grade. You'll see, Merlin, you'll see the standard variation and distribution of gold. It's not, you'll have zones going up 300-400 grams per ton, and then you can go 5 meters and it might be going only 4 grams per ton. But overall, this one of these structures that we've now defined, some 950 meters of sort of continuous structure, can be quite astounding in the grades. And it's identifiable because the subvertical feature has an elevated bismuth signature, not in the penalty range, right, just background. And so our VMS corridor is some 50 kilometers, and within that high-grade gold, where Cabaçal is, which is one of 7 of our targets, we know that the gold overprint is very present there. And now, as we've looked back into the data, of course, 11 kilometers to the southeast, we have multiple targets. We can, and another mine, small mine, we can actually identify the VMS sequence. And
is that shown in that in the bottom left of the image?
In the bottom right, yeah. Those two little mining signals there, that's about 11 kilometers.
Yeah.
And we can actually identify the high-grade gold overprint along that entire strike.
Do you have the multi-element geochemistry to be able to go back into the data and I mean, were they doing, I don't know, 36 element or 52 element kind of ICP analysis back in the day?
Yeah. Look, the key soil techniques were the basic ones. I guess they did gold counts in soil, copper, lead, zinc, systematically. I guess we're building on that with a more thorough multi-element package now. They did a little bit of work on lithogeochemistry on the rock mass. So we've got some of that data. I guess the systematic base metal package is the most valuable data set and the most comprehensive and systematic one. If I had to make one comment about your question about the resource and the ability to grow it, one thing we found, because it was a mine, or the company at the time was focused on the high-grade gold, the high-grade gold sits within a much broader copper envelope. And we found in a number of cases where we drilled twin holes, we were drilling beside holes where we weren't particularly expecting to get mineralisation because the previous core didn't show any assay data. Initially we thought, okay, well, that's because it's barren, hasn't been sampled. But what we found with our drilling was that when we sampled it continuously, or obviously we could see it and decided to sample it continuously because we could actually see extensions of the sulphide footprint into these previously unsampled regions. And very simply, there was a phase there where many of the holes weren't, most of the holes in fact weren't systematically assayed. So particularly this higher copper zone, many significant gaps in that coverage. So part of our resource development program in the months ahead will be to cover those gaps. In the previous modelling, these were just holes in the mineral envelope. So there's been quite a substantial change in places to the position of that envelope, knowing that the core wasn't systematically sampled.
So you can see that within that historical model, they've got zones, sometimes, I think upwards of 20 metres in some cases, where they've literally got 0 grams per tonne, 0 copper. But we've gone through and assayed that, and all of a sudden we've got 0.45, 0.6% copper equivalent. So you can add, that's going to be additional tonnage into the project.
So where are you on the, I haven't got quite clear in my head. I saw you had 15,000 meters for kind of metallurgical and drilling, but where are you on your resource evaluation, and where are you on a kind of a scoping study in terms of those kind of building blocks?
In terms of the drilling program, we've just done a selection of metallurgical holes. So initially we embarked on a 10,000 meter program, and we expanded that because in light of these recognitions that there were high-grade trends that the previous drilling hadn't represented in the northwest extension, the areas that were left unsampled. So we extended that by 15,000 metres to be able to give that adequate coverage. The metallurgical program's been finished. That was a selection of half a dozen or eight holes that will be in the process of being assayed at the moment and will be sent to Canada. In terms of the drill program at the moment, particularly we're in a infill phase, so a lot of the drilling in the northwest extension remains to be, I guess we've drilled along a trend. We're progressively stepping across strike now and building out our knowledge. As Gilbert said, as we expect, by analogue to the mine, we'll find a range of these high-grade gold structures which vertical drilling missed. So a lot of our drilling will be in that northwest extension still.
Parallel structures. So it's not just one; it's a series of parallel structures that you're testing on a series of fences along that strike.
Yeah, this is actually a good cross section here. I'll just bring it up. This is from page 18 of the presentation. Now, if you look at the top right of the diagram, you can see the vertical drilling from BP. They've gone through and done on, say, 25 or 30 metre spacings, a vertical hole every 100 metres, and that picks up perfectly well the flat-lying green outline of the VMS mineralisation. Absolutely perfect. But as you saw in hole 54, which was 54.4 metres at 2.6 grams per tonne gold, 0.4 copper, 1.7 silver, it was made up of a lot of these very high-grade gold veins that are subvertical, so they were just completely missed. And we expect that there will be other zones where it will be in this diagram in the top right, to the right of it and to the left of it, there'll be other zones of high-grade gold, and they will be structurally continuous, but the gold distribution will be variable. You'll have some zones, as per any gold mine that I've worked at, you'll see zones where you have absolute boomers, and you will have some lower grade zone, average zones, barren zones, but the structures will continue. And we'll probably have to drill this down to, say, 25 by 25 metre drill spacing. But that's, as we've gone north, that one zone of high grade gold you can see in the top right there, that goes to the north another 900 metres or so. And we go up in zones that are going 26 metres at 21 grams within a copper envelope of 0.2. We've got zones going 1% copper. It's very much a typical VMS root system. And if this was, say, 300-400 metres of vertical structure going down, it'd be non-economical. But because of the bulk tonnage near surface or at surface nature of it, all of a sudden you've got a very large mineralised envelope which's got optimal geometry and geography, for a open pit development.
And so that dashed outline with the 950 metre kind of strike length, that ellipse is the drill target for 2022.
No, that's one of the zones. We've actually got we think we're going to have multiple parallel zones trending northwest of high grade gold, overprinting the flat lying VMS sequence.
Yeah. We'll have at the moment we've got 3 rigs on site, and 2 of them are currently deployed in the northwest extension. We had some indications in some of our early drilling last year where we stepped up some way off the trend to the west. That a couple of holes that intersected elevated gold, and we're following up, doing some follow-up work of exactly what Gilbert described as testing across strike. The system, although we haven't discussed it so much either, the system is open to the southeast as well. So to the southeast part of the VMS package plunges at a very gentle angle beneath a post-mineralisation dike. The geochemistry becomes subdued, but we know again from the reconnaissance BP drilling that some of the holes they punch through intersect the same stratigraphy. So we've got further work to do along the trend to the southeast, along as much as we do to the northwest here. We in many ways, it's a question of multiple opportunities to work and build the resource. So it's one of the focal points, but building the extension to the south is important. A bit of close-off work to do in the eastern copper zone, the up-dip part of the deposit, which was not as intensely drilled by BP again because they were focused on the underground development. So some of the very shallow drilling we did there last year intersected some gold mineralisation. So we've got a little bit of work to do to just pick up and expand on those trends as well.
Thank you, Adrian. Gilbert, can you just kind of summarise for me in simple terms what as well as drilling the multiple parallel subvertical zones in the south, in Cabaçal northwest extension? What are your are you putting a pin in the drilling at some point and putting out a resource statement? What are the building blocks that you're working on this year? Kind of the key areas.
We will look to put our first resource statement out end of Q2, Q3. We know that it could still be open, but at some stage, very correctly, we're going to put a pin in it. So, all right, let's just calculate it, and we'll do a resource upgrade at a later stage, and potentially also include, say, the first resource for St. Helena. And we've already done our own in-house studies. We have a very good operations team. We're not we have an execution team. We have mining engineers, geologists, and so forth. We've already started and did an in-house and an external evaluation on the project. So we'll probably go straight into PFS. We're envisaging, and we think with quite significant and strong support, that the open pit potential is a pit of some 2,000 metres in strike length, probably 800 meters across, going down maybe to 180 meters vertically. One of the things we haven't really touched on, which is crucial to all of this, is the overall metal recoveries, the metallurgy. So we have a very limited saprolite layer. We go straight into crystalline rock after, say, 15 to 20 meters. So that means even though the upper pit will still go through the gravity circuit, we know from production data, Merlin, what does this mine do? Well, we know we'll get somewhere around 94% recovery on the copper and the gold, and probably upwards of 86, 87% recovery of the silver. We will produce a gold doré on site, and this project could, as a potential producer, I could have to keep saying potential, a copper, gold, silver concentrate of, say, around 26% copper, maybe 20 grams gold, and a couple hundred, or maybe up to 180, 160 grams silver, that type of range. So that will come out in our pre-feasibility study that we intend to launch in Q3.
And do you know yet how much of the gold will go to the copper con?
Yeah, we'll get 55% of the gold will go into the gravity circuit. In the previous life, the mine was using shaker tables. Will go to the Nelson concentrator, so that fine percentage or fraction that doesn't float and was too fine for the shaker tables will recover the Nelson concentrator, and then the other 45% will go into the recoverable gold will go into the copper con. This is actually some of the best metal I've ever seen. We think we'll get. We know that we don't have to use any type of reagents to get the copper to float. It's soft flotation. I think we're projecting somewhere around 12 to 15 minutes to get 100 of the recoverable copper. 100% of that will be covered in about 15 minutes in the flotation cells. The grind
size, is that right?
120 microns.
Okay.
Very, very coarse. When we, like Adrian and I have looked at and discussed it many times, when we look at the chalcopyrite mineralization, it's incredibly coarse. It's beautiful. No mercury, no deleterious. We don't have all the problems of the Iberian pyrite belt where it's incredibly fine. They've always had historical metallurgical problems. We don't have it like in Spain. We've got no mercury problem. We've got no arsenic problem. The copper con out of IBP is a dirty con. There's a reason why you got mercury towers with Arubis in Hamburg, because it's a dirty con. It's a discounted concentrate. This will be a premium concentrate.
And lead and zinc?
Zinc floats off completely separately. We know that it's never been a penalty element in the Cabaçal concentrate. The lead has never been elevated or recoverable. It floats separately. The St. Helena mine, it actually is interesting. It produced just a zinc and a copper concentrate, and they let the gravity just went to the tailings dam. But there was a small amount of lead went into the zinc concentrate there. They had elevated iron. But St. Helena was incredibly rich in silver. It was going, 600-800 grams per ton silver in the concentrate, historical data, of course. This is the quite remarkable commercial attributes, because, we are looking at, say, $100, $120 rock, give or take, prices come on. And I can't say for a gold project or a copper project, because it's 50-50 on the cash flow. But it is remarkable. If I'm going to be mining, say, all-in delivered cost to concentrate is, say, $27, $28 a ton net smelter return cutoff grade, and you're looking at a rock that's $100 a ton in situ value, the cyclical nature of the mining industry means if, say, even commodities come off 30 or 40% in X years, this thing will still be cash flow positive.
You could, even if you come off 30, 40%, you'd still effectively have a pretty decent margin, close to 100%.
And the strip ratio on this one could be, sub 2.5 to 1.
Yeah.
And we go straight into crystalline rock. And what we've communicated, and we're going to evaluate in the mine schedule, is the northwest extension. We have one zone up there some 200 meters of strike, which is incredibly high grade gold, starting from, I don't know, 30 meters down. It's very high grade gold. We'll probably focus our initial production there for mill feed, and put through maybe, it could be 8, 9, 10 gram dirt, and focus that to pay off the capex, the debt component, as quickly as possible.
Do you talk internally about what the right scale of this project is? I mean, because you can't scale it right until you know what you've got. And if
we're focusing on 2.5 million tonne, because we think there's going to be a resource, potential resource statement that could support that for a 20-year, potentially maybe a 20-year initial 20-year mine life. But when you go to project finance as a developing resource, developing mid-tier company where we're aiming to be, when you go to the project finance, if you go to a bank and say, I'm going to make a 5 million tonne per annum mill, they're just going to say, nah, walk away. So we'll walk and then we'll run. There's a scalability of this asset, because we have agents, we didn't really touch on it, but 2 kilometres down the road, you've got a 3,500 metre copper gold zinc anomaly. We've got satellite high-grade projects like St. Helena, and you go another 15 kilometres down the road, within trucking distance, satellite, a deposit called Alamos, and that's 4,000 metres of conductivity trend and associated, some associated soil anomalies, copper, gold, zinc, silver. And we have projects to the northwest again. So you have to look at this Meridian's asset of Cabaçal in the context of, say, Flim Flon. Go back to Flim Flon 1914 or 1913 when it was discovered. And then big central deposit, multi-decade producing, which was then fed via satellite deposits. And that's exactly what we've got here. It was really interesting yesterday. I had a chat here. I'm in Vancouver today. And one of the investors said, look, what are you comparable to? And I said, look, what you should really be looking at is in 3 months or 4 months' time, how many of these other companies in the market will be comparing their projects to ours. They'll be saying, we've got similar attributes to Cabaçal, because now there is no comparable in this project. And
I'm a great believer in VMS camps, but I'm also a great believer in exploring is easier than building a mine. Building a mine is a complex, and there are lots of places for people to trip up on building a mine. And I'm not saying that a development company shouldn't have ambition to build a mine, but question mark is there. You say you're looking at 2.5 million tonnes, and maybe 5 million tonnes is way too big, but maybe you've got a bit of exploration along the trend, and perhaps look within a 10-kilometre trucking distance, and maybe actually the best size is 3.5 million tonnes. And
it could well be, but at the same time, what we have to look at, and it's how we acquired the project, which was the purchase agreement, where we have to actually build a mine. And within that context, okay, I look at Cabaçal, we work with Adrian on what the resource, resource delineation of a mine is perfect. Adrian's got the great experience on that. And then as my roles, I'm complementing with Adrian, we're complementing the execution team. We'll bring on another executive sometime shortly. That's the perfect size for a mid-tier company, because if we were to, say, developing a porphyry, the equity component to build that mine wipes out the equity value, and that's why they always go for a discount. But with the VMS systems, the equity component to build a mine, because you've got the debt, banking debt, the project finance, but the equity component is not dilutive to the shareholders, it's achievable, and then all of a sudden you've got a mid-tier developing asset with potentially paying dividends for decades to come.
Yeah, great. Well, I get all of that because I'm in a company with a VMS. I know all about that. So no, really interesting. Adrian, Gilbert, thank you so much for talking me through it. I'll be certainly looking out. So Gilbert, you said kind of putting the resource Q2, Q3. Is it kind of more likely to be Q3, given that you've got lots of dynamic stuff going on on the drilling?
I can't telegraph results, but my feeling it will be early at Q3. I think that's I would really love to push it, Adrian, to get it done by end of Q2 by June. But we've got a very high standard of technical excellence, which is led by Adrian, and that's fundamental to the success of the company. But we will put a pin in it, and I think if a QP said, okay, we're happy to go forward now, then we'll do it. I think that's an achievable timeframe, Adrian, so end of Q2, start of Q2.
I think that's right. I mean, it's obviously, you know, we at some point we've got to put a pin in it, as you say, and define the limits. I think there's many exciting growth potential projects here in terms of, you know, exploration, development, indications of intersections that are just waiting, and anomalies waiting to be followed up. But you know, as Gilbert said, we will be building a mine here, and we'll need obviously to draw a line in the sand to have the basis. And there's always you know, some scope for doing a bit of infill work to convert, you know, indicated to measured resources. So there'll be a little bit of, you know, work to carry on, but certainly by that target frame, I certainly want to define what the full footprint of the mineralised envelope is and get the critical parts into, you know, indicated, minimum indicated resources, and be on the way to measured. So yeah.
There's one thing, Merlin, that Adrian's just touched on, the first resource. Everyone, it's a justifiable analogy, is the Lassonde curve of valuation and equity growth. And that is a very good curve for investors to follow. It works very well on single asset companies. The Lassonde curve really doesn't have an allocation or an influence on a belt scale VMS camp, because you've got multiple discoveries over the belt. On a single asset company, it's very justifiable, but for Meridian, this is going to be the first resource of one of our first targets, and we've got 7 other hydrothermal centres to develop. So the Lassonde curve doesn't apply. It doesn't apply to belt scale projects, because you just keep discovering. It's that when we've already got our next resource target ready to come into the fold, which is Santa Helena, and then we've got other. Just if it was in Australia, Adrian, this thing would be peppered.
Oh, that's right. I mean, people often ask us about project analogues and you know, what the project's fundamentally about and the opportunity it presents. And really, it's a belt that's a well mineralised belt that's been frozen in time and exploration since RTZ you know, stopped the mining operation in the 1990s. It simply wasn't the scale of asset that was you know, in line with their portfolio, and there's nowhere else that we can think of really that we've seen this quality of targets that are left untested. We've got areas which have got 8 gram per tonne soil anomalies that are crying out to be drilled. We've got, as Gilbert said, 3,500 metres of polymetallic base metal anomalies that similarly in any other environment would have been drilled systematically. So, you know, that growth potential that Gilbert has spoken about, it's just a real selling point for us for the project. We've got 50 kilometres in the Cabaçal belt. We've actually also got a large footprint in the parallel belts to the west, which have got exactly the same stratigraphy and a range of anomalies, geophysical, geochemical anomalies that were defined by that first era of BP work. So this will be a belt that's going to be, you know, it's really a multi-decade exploration and discovery proposition. I've got no doubt about it.
Well, good. I look forward to seeing more results coming out of it. If you bring up some core and stick it in the core shack in the PDAC, I'll come down and have a look.
Yeah, we certainly will.
Yeah. Good. Well, thank you guys so much for your time, and I'll catch up with you later in the year.
Excellent. Thanks, Merlin.
Thanks very much.